Hello, everybody, and welcome to the second episode on Solution for the Global Spend Analysis Challenge. In the first part, you saw that we solved the hidden tail component. Now, in the second part, we are going to see how we can find consolidation opportunities using the tail spend analysis. And as usual, I will be using my blog post as a guideline framework. So let's get right into it. First of all, I am going to open up my blog post, which is on the Medium. Here. It's always good to have a reference that you can run through. So, just to remind us one more time, this is what we solved in the last session, which is the hidden tail. Now we are moving towards the B, which says low value sourcing that can be consolidated, and this is the session's objective. Now I'm going to pull up the Excel file that we have been working with. I have marked the portion which we have solved. I'm not going to repeat it. This is the data that we have been dealing with, as you know from the last session. If you are using this session for the first time to learn, I would highly recommend go and watch the first part before you attempt this. As usual, we are going to insert our pivot table, and as I told you last time, make sure you click this portion here. Add this data to the data model. It gives you ability to filter the unique transactions. And I'm going to click OK, and what we are solving is cost consolidation opportunities. All right, so let's get started onto it. Now, you know from our raw data set we have PO date, so it's always good to organize your data according to the dates. The good thing Excel does is it will automatically convert your dates into years, quarters, months, PO dates. I don't need all of them, so I would probably move them to the master filter. So we have 4 columns. Let's move it to the columns, the years. Now we are trying to find the cost consolidation opportunities. There are 2 ways of doing it. Either you can find it by using the supplier, which is like this. This is your supplier list, and then you can look for each supplier is supplying how many products. I do it the other way around because I find it easier. What I will do is instead of supplier name, I will start with the product names. In this case, we have A, B, and C. And I'm going to see how many suppliers I have for each of my product. It's super simple, just drag it. And as I said, right now it's count. Now because we added the data model, we can use the distinct count. And now I have the supplier count. So to see the first glance reaction, I would say we have 8 suppliers, which is higher than the usual supplier range of 8 and 3. Now, although we will have a separate session to handle this case, but I would like to highlight this. One supplier is a sole supplier opportunity case. And when we gave the problem statement, we also gave this how many sole suppliers we talk about, which is the case of poor sourcing decision. I would still not classify it. Let's add one more category here. Sole supplier optimization. That's it. But again, and my apologies. Okay, now let's return to finding the cost consolidation opportunity. So let's ignore this one. We are probably going to focus on B and C. So let's see the how many contractual spend we have. That's the second step. So we have a column of contract yes and no. So under each product, now I would like to see how much spend do I have with contracted supplier and how much spend do I have with non-contracted suppliers. So instead of supplier count now, I will go and pull up my spend, which I guess is PO value. And again, I would like to keep my data set clean and organized. So this is what we have done. You see, we were talking about product B and product C. Now it may become more complex, the structure, but I want you to follow what we are doing here. The first view was we saw the supplier count, and this second view is how much spend I have in the product in the contracted and non-contracted. What we are looking for is supplier optimization. So I would like to reintroduce the supplier count like this. Again, I'm going to go to value field setting and focus only on the distinct count. So this is my supplier count, okay? And I would like to focus only on the last 2 years. So ignore the 19 and 20, we focus on 2020 and 2021. One way to further organize your data is you can change the pivot table design to merge this 2020 cell like this, because these two are belonging to the same year. So I would always do one thing, go to the setting, merge, and then it's a bit more organized data, okay? Decrease the width because, my bad, sorry. Okay, now let's analyze this. So product C, if you see, has only one supplier with which we have a contract and 8 suppliers where we do not have a contract. And this trend continues in 2022 as well. And this gives me an excellent opportunity to further explore why is it like that. So the next intuition tells me that go and find out the supplier names specifically. So I'm going to pull up the supplier name. We are not focusing on product A for now. We are not focusing on product B for now. We are only focusing on product C. And it's always good to organize your data in descending order so that you can see in order of priority. Okay. So now you see where I do not have a contract, supplier D is my top supplier followed by supplier C. Okay. And in fact, supplier C has a contract. But if you remember from a previous session, if you have a case where you have a contracted spend and spend outside the contract, that's a hidden tail. So we are going to ignore this because we have solved this problem in part 1. Now in this case, I'm going to focus upon these opportunities because for me, I would like to solve this and consolidate into one. Now this is still not tail spend, it's rather a bigger term than tail spend. So let's do this. What's the total? So the total opportunity count is about 73 million right now. Now let's not jump to the conclusion yet. Just hold on for a sec. What I will do is I will just write this for now. Product C, suppliers D, J, E, F, G, H, I. Okay. D, J, E, F, G, H, I, and it's roughly 73 million. Product C, suppliers, okay. Typos, okay. Now let's get to the section on the tail spend to bring more clarity to this situation. So I'm going to reorganize this data for me, okay? Just remember one thing, that your supplier D is the top rated supplier that you want to begin contractual communications with. Get a new contract in simple terms. Now to do the tail spend analysis, what not generally people would do is they will start with product name, go for supplier name, collapse this view for now, and arrange in the descending order. I'm doing it in total so that the net impact. Now you would see that it's the top 80%, the old age formula that people would tell you, still find it relevant, but it's only a limited extent. So if you would have been doing, let's say, a traditional way of 80-20, which is the method we are following now, you would see that probably these, how much is it, 95 million. There's another way of doing a subtotal here, okay? So 95 million. So 80% of 95 million is around 76 million. So you do 76 million, which is roughly till here, right? So traditional method would tell you that focus on D, C, J, F, G. It's fine if you want to follow this, but then you have to take out the contractual spend. So either you can take this contract filter, move it to the top, and focus only on the no portion. That's the first step you have to do if you're following the 80-20 rule. Now we have only 86 million. 80% of 86 million would be roughly 68 million. So we would follow the 68 million, which is till here. So D, C, J, F, G. We are roughly talking the same thing. Either you follow the approach A or you follow the approach B. Slow the video down if you don't understand the two methods, rewind it back and follow the methodology again. Alright, so with both the approaches, we are ending up at roughly the same amount, D, C, J, F, G, H. So all the supplier names were also there in our recommendation list of 73 million. Now, as a business analyst or as a procurement excellence analyst, you now need to give these recommendations to your category manager, or if you are the category manager, you need to start the discussion of consolidating this spend, reduce your supplier count. Now, ideally you would like to have only 2 or 3, that's totally up to you, considering the risks, everything, but the recommendation is to consolidate this spend with 2 or 3 suppliers. Now when you are going to talk, let's imagine you are going to speak to supplier D to consolidate. There's one additional step that you need to do, and that is analyze how far supplier D has in your product portfolio. If supplier D is supplying any other product, B or A, at least have that view. And it's easy in our case. What we can do is we can pull up the supplier names like that to analyze the supplier portfolios. Okay, so you see supplier D, which was our recommended supplier, is not only supplying product C but has some fair share of product B as well. Although not much, but it always helps you to negotiate not only on C but try to consolidate supplier D's total portfolio, which is 45 million. Now try to anticipate the steps. When you're going to talk to supplier D to get a contract done for product C, he's going to ask you 2 questions. How much volume can you commit for product C? Today you're spending approximately 40 million, but what's the total size of business you can give is 86 million. Remember, this is the non-contracted spend. If your strategy is to have 2 supplier, maybe you want to play the numbers, divide up the pie again into product supplier D or supplier C. That's totally your choice. That's part 1. And as we said, not only product C, that guy is also providing you product B. So I would ask you another question to do the same exercise for product B as well. Is there a scope to consolidate product B also? So let's jump to now product B, because we have analyzed product C now. Product B has only 2 suppliers, that is supplier B and supplier D, no other supplier. The annual spend of product B in 2022 was only 14 million. Okay, and since you have only 2 suppliers, you don't want to consolidate and give everything to D, because then you will end up with a sole supplier situation. Okay, so I would recommend not to consolidate further. Keep the product B as is and focus only on the product C. So you're ready. Okay, you're ready. Now go to the supplier D, talk about consolidation. There's one last step you still need to do. What is the cost competitiveness of this supplier D? And that is what determines whether you should give business to supplier D or move on to some other supplier. For this, we have to do the unit price comparison of supplier D. To keep things simple and clean, I will get rid of product A and product B. So we are only dealing with product C now. I think we can move it to the master filter, right? And get rid of this and let's say this is the total business that we're talking about. Now, since we're doing unit price comparison, let's start with only 2021 because that's the full year data that we have. Okay. All right. Range in the descending order. And now let's compare the competitiveness of supplier D with all other suppliers. And that's fairly easy because we have a unit price comparison. The ideal way will be to do a weighted average. And again, this is a limitation of the data model that you cannot insert a calculated field. So what we are going to do is, I'm going to insert a new pivot table to calculate the unit price comparison of supplier D. So go to data, insert pivot table, and this time around, I'm not going to insert any data model. Okay, you click here. I will rename this as unit price comparison. Save it. Okay, so we are only focusing on product C. We are only focusing on year 2020. Yeah, we'll move to columns. Supplier names are here. This is what we are dealing with right now. So product C. The years are 2021 and 2022. And the contract is no. These were the filter that we are dealing with. Okay, let's try to bring in the PO value just to see that we are running the right numbers. Okay. Okay, so let me zoom in a bit for your ease of viewing. All right, let's freeze up the column now. Let's get back to our initial assignment of calculating the weighted average unit price. So we have to insert a formula field here. Formula field. I think it should be here. No, hold on please. Yes. Calculated figure. Okay, this is the weighted average price. Let's call it that. And the formula we are trying to do is really simple, just the PO value divided by the quantity, and that's it. You click it, you have the weighted average price. Although it says sum, it doesn't really matter. It's always says sum. So this is, I will say, the unit price, and this is the total price. So my dear friends, I would again, as I said, I like to keep things organized. Merge it, and you can do one thing, move the years down to change the view. Now you're comparing total business value with the orders. I want to see the unit prices first, so I can always push this field here. Now look at this. In year 2022, supplier D has increased the prices from 65 to 87, while supplier C has maintained it flat. So I would not dare to go to supplier D and give him more business. That will be a stupid recommendation. All right, I would rather give more business to supplier C to consolidate. That's one. And also supplier C happens to be the best pricing supplier, not only in 2022 but also in 2021. So my recommendation would be to give as much business as I can to supplier C, which should be from 12 million. So out of the proportion of 86 million, which I guess currently he is at only 14%, you should rather take this business to at least 86% or 80 or 85% to supplier C, and you will end up saving more money. This is how you do a proper cost comparison. Now, how much money you can save is actually a numbers game, but since we are simulating stuff, it's easy to calculate. So the way we can calculate is the total business, hold on, one second, total quantity will be useful here. I can just draw the quantity here. So hypothetically, let's say the quantity available is 792,000, okay, but I don't want to give everything. I would rather give out of the let's say call it as 800,000. So out of 800,000 I want to give 400,000 quantity to supplier C. So how much money can I save? My average price excluding supplier C is 93, okay, and let's write it down, okay. Unit price without supplier C is 93 in 2022, okay. Unit price of supplier C is 57. Unit price of supplier C is 57. The per unit saving comes out to be 36, even if the price is same as of 2022. How much quantity are we talking about? We're talking about 400,000, and that's your saving. I'll convert this to million to keep it easy. So that's a 14 million immediate saving without any further discounting. But of course you can reduce this 57 even further, all right? And if you can go above 400,000, then you can save even more. So for me, the cost, we come to the problem statement. The cost saving opportunity is 73 million theoretically, but supplier C should be given the opportunity to consolidate the spend for product C. Estimated savings 14 million with 400,000 quantity commitment. And that's how we lock down the easy to execute, a bit more practical way to recommend a cost saving opportunity. That marks the end of this lesson, and I will get back to you with the next lesson where we will dive deep into suspicious transaction. My name is Gaurav, and this series is part of my ongoing spend analysis challenge. Thank you for watching it. Goodbye.